What else is valuable? Knowledge. What else? No, really, that's good. Knowledge, you're on the right track. What else? How many of you read newspapers? What? What newspaper? Register Guard, okay. Anything else?
Not on a regular basis.
Okay. You subscribe to the Register Guard?
No.
Okay. Here's part of my home training. So what I do, what I find with the Register Guard is it's limited. And a lot of times they get their stories from other newspapers, like, for example, New York Times. So I actually do subscribe to the Register Guard, but I also have the New York Times on my iPad, as well as getting the print version of the Sunday Times on Sunday, because it actually have like a week in review of top stories, et cetera, et cetera. So for example, an economy of ideas, all right? So there's a guy who invented the software for Siri. The idea that you could talk to your computer and it would respond back to you. The problem was that a competing company also had a similar idea. All right? So he went to Apple first, and he had, some venture capital, et cetera, talking computer. And this other company sued him for patent infringement, which he won. But now all the money that he was going to use to start up his company went to lawyers. So the other company wound up buying him out. He's out, right? Well, how do you patent an idea? The economics of an idea, right? Disney, for example. Walt Disney, the classic story about an idea. What does this have to do with economics? Well, he had Oswald the Rabbit. And the people that he was working with stole the idea and patented Oswald the Rabbit, and he was shut out of his company. Well, he said, and he was bummed for a little bit, but, the rabbit didn't make me. I made the rabbit, so I can come up with another rabbit. And so what happened is he comes up with Mickey Mouse. Nobody's heard of Oswald the Rabbit. And Mickey Mouse, you can't buy the logo, but it's like one of the most recognizable and expensive patents that are in existence today. And it's just an idea, Mickey Mouse. So there's nothing Mickey Mouse about Mickey Mouse. The idea, economy, all right? So it's ideas and things and practices that are also part of the economy. That if the economy is depressed, is that there's not enough ideas, or that the ideas that would be bringing you out of the depression not coming forth? Could be either one, right? But you would have to know, where ideas come from, and then how to either market them or look at how you promote certain ideas over others to bring you out of the depression. I like talking about, say, drug technology and addiction. So, for example, one answer to depression, and I'm not promoting this, I'm just making the observation. There are many people that feel that an education in terms of what you're doing is a waste of time in terms of making money. Okay? And they point to people like Bill Gates as well as Freeway Ricky Ross. I don't encourage you to take Ricky Ross's road. Y'all know who Ricky Ross is? Okay. one of the major suppliers of cocaine from the Contras. So the beginning of what used to be in one country an unknown, a largely unknown herb up until 150 years ago, cocaine, suddenly explodes on the global market. And so individuals who are out of work can participate in the underground economy within a society. So actually there's an analysis that can be done where if you're, there was actually a theory, is actually a theory in terms of where drug dealing gangs come from in the United States. Obviously, drugs are really expensive, Dare. Drugs are really expensive. So, who becomes a drug dealer? Well, one of the earliest theories in 1919 was basically that immigrants basically are part of a criminal subculture, and that's where gang problems come from. Except in 1919, the guy writing it, Thrasher, is basically saying that Russians, Bohemians, Jews, Italians, Swedes, Norwegians, they have a criminal culture. Not making this up. Okay? Irish, Scottish, right? So he's saying the drug dealers are European immigrants. And we should therefore limit immigration because these people aren't American. They don't have American values. I'm not making this up. This is history, right? Okay? So you have people like Joe Kennedy. Okay? The patriarch of the Kennedy clan, who the family says, oh, he made his money in real estate. Well, how does an Irish person who isn't part of the legal economy become a real estate mogul? By running rum in Prohibition. He's a drug dealer. So he makes enough money. Look for pictures. Get to work. Come on. So basically what he did is, since his informal group could not get into the large overground economy, what they did is they ran rum in Prohibition. That made him enough money selling an illegal drug so he could send his kids to Harvard and they could become presidents. Okay, so drug dealing gangs were, originally immigrants, but the drug dealing gangs have been going on in America for 175 years. Now, what happens when the Kennedy boys get to go to Harvard? They don't have to send their kids. They can send their kids to college and they don't have to participate in the underground economy anymore. They've become legit. Okay? Is the mafia just going to do, drugs and prostitution? No. They buy insurance companies and record companies. Warner Brothers, as an example. Okay? They invest in banks. They have banks money launder. Boom, boom, boom. They move up the economic ladder. Now, some people aren't being allowed to move up the economic ladder through the legitimate economy. And they also aren't necessarily taught the rules of how money works within a society. Okay, so many of our social problems, when we say what goes around, comes around, okay? You have recursive, that is repeating patterns, all right? And understanding that there is within, for example, history, not just looking at the events that have been told by a particular hero, but also looking at history through the lens of economics and politics. So politics is the science of power. Who has it, who doesn't? What are the hidden infrastructure? Okay, so when I was talking about crash last week, just understanding that, and if you've never seen an analysis like that, okay, we study, African Americans study not only racism, but also how a particular point of view can shape not only history, psychology, but also economics. It has an economic consequences. So, griots. So, in terms of tradition and innovation, so no doubt, some griots might have been captured as slaves and imported to America. Koras would have been in short supply in America, so they would have need to be invented. So the kora may be, well, this one says maybe, but I believe it was an inspiration for the American banjo, which is an African instrument from Senegal, the home of many slaves, than the banjo. Basically, American banjo shares lots of attributes of the Senegalese kora. That is, you have a bridge on an animal skin, strings which are tuned in a particular way, and a percussive style of playing. So tradition and innovation. So those two twin influences in African culture, tradition and innovation. So response to survival needs generates an innovation, something that has been tried before. If the innovation works, it becomes a tradition. So obviously in the case of the banjo, not all arts of the griot get carried over into African American culture, but the blues and gospel and other things do. So part of the piece in talking about rites of passage, kemet, all right? We don't necessarily have the educational system in America to produce the unity that was evident 5,000 years ago, which of course wasn't without its problems. All right, so to begin to do that, we had to invent quote-unquote ethnic studies, because we didn't have an educational system that was based on teaching everybody about everybody from everybody's point of view. So kawaida then can be a recreation of the basic skills of a griot or jolly. So you blend multiple languages, multiple histories, tell multiple stories with multiple meanings. The griot or griot will be able to weave his or her poem, tale to the fit of the audience before them. Kawaida then is a way of capsulizing African culture for an African American audience and others. So hip hop is basically the griot in the 20th and 21st century, except without necessarily hip-hop artists knowing about how to do drums. As a jazz musician, my bias is clear. Instruments, not samples. But, okay, enough of that. Griots and griots. So in tradition, in innovation, when traditions don't work, and depending on what the tradition is, try innovation. Denied the kora, create a banjo. No instruments, and so, I mean, that's part of the history. I remember when music was in public schools. I learned to play trumpet before piano and guitar. But then the Beatles hit the 6th grade, and so in order to be one of the cool kids, you had to play guitar, right? So no instruments, use a turntable or sampler. When music was taken out of public schools, people basically started using turntables and samplers. Deny the drum, use hand claps, create gospel. Outside of the church, sing the blues, jazz, rock, rap, hip-hop, and whatever else comes next. So, moja, unity, hidden unity within diversity. All Africans are one people. Kujichagulia, self-determination, to define ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Are we descendants of slaves or scientists and explorers? Are we up from slavery or down from the pyramids? Are we in terms of African Americans, are we 400 years, that is, we were imported as slaves and never came here before, or are African Americans actually part of a 2,500-year history in American Turtle Island? And see where my bias is. Okay? Ujima. So Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our sisters and brothers' problems our problems and solve them together. Takes a village to raise a child. Kwanzaa being the public face of Kawaida, a time to practice cultural remembrance amidst the materialism of Christmas, and the Nguzo Saba are to be practiced throughout the year. So Black History Month is every day. So to continue, Ujama, cooperative economics. To build and maintain our own shops, stores, and other businesses and profit from them together. Community benefit over individual profit. So for example, welfare to business in Mississippi, what I call Mississippi Mondragon, the Nation of Islam, African socialism, communalism are all examples of Ujama. Guess I should explain that, huh? African socialism goes like this. What I'll call Mississippi Mondragon. MISSI, SSI, PPI. Okay, to explain that, have you heard of Mondragon? Mondragon cooperatives? You know the difference between capitalism and cooperative? Yes? No? Thank you. Copy that. So, in capitalism, a capitalist, that is a single person or collective, a single person becomes an investor, buys a business, starts a company. And the profits go to single person up at the top. Okay? That's a single owner or owners, maybe a partnership, a single owner. That's basic capitalism. In a cooperative, the workers own the business. Okay, so when I was talking the other day about, okay, how come gold miners don't own the gold mine? They're the ones doing the work, producing the gold. How is it that people that don't go into the mines own the company that does the gold? How is that? Right? Here's how Mondragon works. Mondragon is a cooperative corporation in Basque Spain with about 170 interlocking cooperatives organized along finance, distribution, and manufacturing. Okay? And they started in Basque Spain, which was a depressed area. There's that word depression again. And they started their own business that was owned equally with 13 people. And that expanded. And one of the first things they did was create a bank. How many of you would get together and could create a bank? You could do that. That's where OUR Credit Union came from when it existed. People got together and created a bank because they couldn't get bank loans. Students, community people, poor people created their own bank. Okay, you're not taught how to do that, but you can do it. It is legal for you to do it. In Mondragon, they created a bank. Then they created a college to teach people how to do manufacturing. Then they did manufacturing. People got hurt on the job. Then they created another cooperative to create a hospital. Then they created an insurance company to pay for the medical care. Boom, boom, boom. 170 interlocking cooperatives. Okay, that make 10 billion euro profit a year. And it's still going. Now, you never heard about them. I wonder why that is. Okay, so Mississippi Mondragon goes like this. Group of black people in Mississippi in the 90s. Okay, a Mississippi welfare check is about $300. If you ever tried to live on $300 a month, you know, if you're on welfare, you cannot have a savings account. It's illegal. You can get food stamps, but no savings account. Okay? Needless to say, you're not taught how to get skillful with money. So here's what they did. Thanks. They pooled their welfare checks. Let's say that there's 10 of them. And let's say they contribute 10% of their welfare check. So in other words, there's a microloan of $300. One of them takes that $300 and starts a business. Now, this is illegal. It is illegal to take your welfare check and start a business with it. And I'm not disputing that it's illegal. But guess what? At the end of the year, each person working this project had got themselves off of welfare. Because welfare doesn't teach you how to do business. They learned on their own. Now, how come welfare reform doesn't talk about making you become an entrepreneur? Learning how to save money. Doesn't teach you that. It teaches you to be dependent. Or welfare reform means, each one of these people has to go work 5 minimum wage jobs and leave their kid at home alone. How is that helping anything? So here's the piece. Black people came up with this. An oppression, basically it's an example of Ujamaa, collective cooperative economics. Okay, they shared a welfare check, and I said it's illegal, but it got them off of welfare. Nothing the government did that. 60 Minutes covered it as an example of welfare fraud, which, look, it is, because it's illegal. You can't share your welfare check to start a business. But guess what? Where is the government's program for getting people off welfare, making them successful entrepreneurial folks? You think the Republicans would be all down with that? No. Okay? We came up with this. All right? And it's an example of, again, 60 Minutes reported on it, so it does exist. All right? We'll take this up more on Wednesday.
Good one.
All right.
Nazitoziva umwari asika ndipo